Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of My Favorite Builds. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a build that I had played around with a lot in the past, but things have changed for this particular build, and I decided this season, Season 5, that I wanted to actually build the character. Now, this is not the character online because I have not had the chance to completely finish the character yet online, and what it really comes down to is that some of the pieces of equipment are kind of expensive. The brand bow I actually managed to get a hold of thanks to the kinship. However, some of the other items like chains of honor that I would need to really complete it are kind of out of my purview at this moment. You can go with a different option other than the base armor, but the problem with this build, and it's the problem with most bow builds, is that when you don't have chains of honor, your resistances tend to go into the negative relatively quickly, and it's not really something that a lot of people enjoy, is having negative resistances. The character is basically built around the idea of utilizing Strafe to get as much, I mean, like ridiculously much damage in terms of proccing effects as you can. Now, you might be asking, what the hell are proccing effects? And I'm going to go over them. I actually have a whole video, by the way, on proccing effects. It goes into more of the detail and the nitty-gritty of how proccing effects work. You can even get certain proccing effects to happen before others, depending on the order in which you equip the items, and a whole bunch of other things. So if you'd like to go over that, I definitely have a ton of that online. First off, this build is kind of centered around the brand bow, which has a proccing effect of a 100% chance to cast level 18 bone spear on striking. The 100% chance is literally 100% chance, which means that every time I hit a target, bam, I get a bone spear. And it is a little bit less awesome than it sounds because it doesn't come out of me, it actually comes out of the monster. So there is a issue there with the way that the bone spears actually emit. But they do come out of any monster that is hit, and then they proceed to, go from there. Now, ideally, if I were to be able to get the maximum amount of damage out of these bone spears, well, I could hit a total number of times of potentially 6 per shot, right? But then Strafe fires 10 times, which is a total of about 60 times per shot. So if we look up Bone Spear, which is the easiest way to do this, and this is not it, Bone Spear Diablo 2, and what we do is we find an average damage of the Bone Spear. So we go down and we look and we say, okay, well, we have level 18 Bone Spear coming from this particular item. And we are looking at 179 to 190 damage. So let's add those together. So 179 plus 190, which gives us an average damage of 184.5. So we take that average damage and we multiply it out by the number of times that we can potentially hit, right? So we can potentially get up to, 60 shots, right? So if we times 60, that is a total of about 11,000 damage per strafe, which is pretty darn amazing. We could also do 184.5 times 10, which is going to be our damage versus an individual monster. So if we have one monster, 1,845. So this is just strafe, though. And this is just the bone spear. Now, there's other things. We also have the proccing effects from Carrion Wind, which gives us level 13 Twister on striking at an 8% chance. We also have a level 16 Lightning coming from the Wish Projector at a 10% chance. We have the 4% chance to cast level 12 Firestorm and the 2% chance to cast level 4 Meteor on the Hellmouth War Gauntlets. And then we also have the 11% chance to cast level 18 Confuse on striking on the Delirium Helmet. Then we also have, of course, the Hellfire Torch, which this particular one is the bugged one, and I'd really like to go grab a non-bugged one if I could. I believe I know where a non-bugged one is. Let's see, Northwind, I believe, has a non-bugged one. And what I mean by bugged is that, well, in the past, before they changed it, it was 25% chance to cast. It's only 5% chance to cast now, but I think you'll see that even with the 5% chance to cast, it spams really, really often. So let's go ahead and swap that out. Now, I really wanted to get as many procs as I could into this build, but I also wanted to balance the build out so that it wasn't just complete and utter tripe, you know, as far as like, oh look, you can't even do the things that you're trying to do because your character is set up wrong, right? Well, I don't want to have my character set up wrong, so I basically have got the resistances that I would want in here, so I can actually, of course, utilize the character correctly. I mean, 35% fire, 35% cold, 70% lightning, and 75% poison isn't exactly terrible. That's a pretty good setup. It's not like the most amazing in the world, but it's fine. Now, for skills, basically, there's kind of like a dichotomy here. A lot of people, when they build Strafe, would definitely max out Strafe, and they're definitely going to max out the synergies for Strafe. However, we don't really need to max out the synergies for Strafe. This build is not about physical damage. It's about dishing out as much elemental and proccing effects as you possibly can. And for this reason, we actually avoid maxing out all the synergies for Strafe. However, we do want to max out Strafe itself because we want that sexy, sexy AR. There are two most important things for a Procazon. The two most important things are, number one, the ability to hit the target. We have to be able to hit the target. If we can't hit the target, we don't proc. If we don't proc, we don't dish out damage. And if we don't dish out damage, then nothing dies. So AR is at the utmost importance. So the massive amount, the 300% AR that we get from maxing out Strafe is very important to the build. Number two is Penetrate. Penetrate is also a massive amount of AR, another 315%, which I know my head's in the way. 315% AR, which is a pretty massive bump in AR. That brings us up to a total of 7,489, which in my opinion is not enough. We need more. We need more AR. So how much more AR do we need before we are capable of hitting the numbers that we need to hit? That's the question. And for some reason my life is bugged. Well, the thing is that, well, you can't really get any more AR from any other sources. If I were to stack the other abilities, I could get some extra damage, but I couldn't get any AR from this. So to get AR, we're going to go another route, and we're going to reduce the monster's defense. So we're going to actually cap out Inner Sight. The reason why we cap out Inner Sight is because it provides a massive amount of negative defense, which allows us to make sure that we're hitting the monsters. Now, you might be saying, well, Ginger, the brand bow ignores target's defense on it. Why do you need so much AR? Well, the answer to the question is that ignores target's defense does not work versus bosses. And because it does not work versus bosses, it is relatively ineffective in just about every scenario that matters. If you're fighting Uber Diablo, if you're fighting the Mephisto, if you're fighting Baal, if you're fighting Diablo, if you're fighting Uber Diablo, Pandemonium Diablo, Uber Baal, etc., whoever you're fighting, if they are not a trash mob, ITD doesn't help you at all versus those monsters. So you have to have an ability to hit monsters that are not just trash mobs. Granted, this works very well versus trash mobs. You don't need any AR for them, but it's still very important to have the AR for the non-trash mobs. Thankfully, the brand bow also comes with some very nice other effects, like, for instance, Prevent Monster Heal, Knockback, Deadly Strike, including the Deadly Strike that comes from High Lords, and we'll go over why I chose High Lords in a minute. So maxing out Penetrate, maxing out Inner Sight, and then we also have to max out Pierce. Pierce is very important for the way that this ability works, and the reason why you max out Pierce specifically is because you want as much piercing effect as you possibly can. Because obviously when we talked earlier about Strafe having 10 shots, and then it can pierce up to 5 times, and then hit an additional 6th, you're not going to be able to get those 60 hits if you can't pierce the target, right? So you have to be able to pierce the target. You have to be able to pierce as many times as you possibly can. And if you're not piercing, well, then you're not getting the damage output that you would otherwise normally need. Now, on top of this, we also have other concerns. So defensiveness, it'd be nice if we had, say, a little bit of tankiness, right? Or a little bit of a boss to tank for us. So we want to get our Valkyrie up to at least level 17, which is very important. So once you get your Valkyrie up to level 17, which is only base 8 points because of the plus to skills that we have, we are looking at a pretty nice little tank for us, which will help us out in most situations. And of course, I usually like to Did I go ahead and I did not. I'm just like to bind these. Alright, so I usually end up putting Z and X because I like having my two buttons easy on command because I'm going to be spamming those. Now, this build is really hard to get Mana Leech on. I've tried really hard to get Mana Leech on this build, and it's one of those crazy builds that just doesn't really like to have Mana Leech. So let me just point this out in advance. My setup here is very specific to what I need to make this character work. But the unfortunate side effect is that you have to sacrifice something for the Mana Leech. Whether you're sacrificing the Wisp Projector for a dual Leech Ring, or you sacrifice the Hellmoth War Gauntlets for a nice pair of Blood Gloves with dual Leech on them, whatever it is that you're going to sacrifice, you've got to sacrifice something to get a little bit of dual leech in the build. So do keep that in mind. Now, the last couple points that you have, the last 12 points, can go wherever you want. You can use them to cap out your Valkyrie, which you can actually get to level 20. Or you can spend some points into one of the synergies if you want to. There are two synergies for Strafe. I know you can't see them because I'm blocking them. But the two synergies for Strafe are multi-shot, and they're also Guided Arrow. Guided Arrow has the higher damage bonus, so if you wanted to throw the points into Guided Arrow, you could get a little bit of extra damage on the physical portion of Strafe, which is, you know, interesting. The other solution would be to, like I said, just dump all your points into Valkyrie, or you could spend a little bit of points into the dodge, avoids, and evades to make your character a little tankier. If you did go with the options, which is basically to make your character less tanky so you don't really have good resistances, there is another procking option that you can go with instead of Chains of Honor, which is the Dragon Armor or the Bone Armor. Both of them are rune words. Bone Armor has a 15% chance to proc, I think, level 10 Bone Spear, and Dragon Armor has a pretty high percent chance to proc Hydras, both of which can add to the procking effects for your character. The way that I have it set up right here, though, the reason why I have it set up this way is because I am utilizing maximum IAS. So earlier when I said that the two most important things for the Procazon is hitting the target and accuracy, well, one of the reasons why I chose, hitting the target is accuracy and speed. One of the reasons I chose this particular setup is because I am utilizing the Hustle Bow on Swamp to proc the effect Burst of Speed. So I basically just run in here real quick. I fire off a couple of these. Of course, didn't switch to it. Fire off a couple of these until I see the effect at my feet. Notice now I have the Burst of Speed effect at my feet, right? So with the Burst of Speed effect at my feet, in combination with the IAS of the Matriarchal Bow, brand bow, and it's very important that you make this in a mat bow, not a Grand Matron, because the Grand Matron will have higher physical damage, yes, but it will be much more difficult for you to hit the maximum IAS breakpoint on Strafe, which is very important to getting the maximum number of proccing effects for this particular build. In combination with an additional 30% increased attack speed, so utilizing the level 1 Burst of Speed and the Nosferatu's Coil along with the High Lord's Wrath, you will hit the magical 30 or highest breakpoint possible for Strafe. And this allows you to dish out as many proc effects as you possibly can, which is pretty insane. I am using Gore Riders specifically because I want the Crushing Blow, the Open Wounds. I want to have it all, basically. Crushing Blow is just another proc, and Deadly Strike is just another proc, and Open Wounds is just another proc, in my opinion. So it's just more procs. And if we go over all the procs that this character has, it's kind of insane. There's Gore Riders with 3 procs on them. We've got Carrion Wind with the Twister procs. We've got the Wisp Projector with the Lightning proc, the Hellmouth Gauntlets with the Meteor and the Firestorm proc. We've got the Brand Bow with the Bone Spear proc. We've got the Delirium with the Confuse proc. And then on top of this, we also set up our Mercenary, so that he has Voice of Reason with the Frozen Orb and the Iced Blast procs, as well as Crescent Moon with the Chain Lightning and the Static Field procs. And then we gave him a nice Stone Armor and an Ariat's Face, which I think we were going to put a IAS Jewel in the Ariat's Face so that he attacks faster. which is important because obviously we want him to attack as quickly as possible. And I actually chose Phase Blades specifically for this, and you might be asking, well, why choose Phase Blades and not like an Eth Mythical Sword or Eth Cryptic Sword or something along those lines? Well, I just want him to attack as fast as possible. For the same reason that I'm attacking as fast as possible to proc effects, I want him to attack as fast as possible to proc effects, so that we're both attacking as fast as possible to proc those effects. Now, specifically for this character, if you wanted to work in that Mana Leech I was talking about earlier, I think the gloves is probably the best spot. Not that I'm hating on the Hellmouth War Gauntlets, because they do have 2 procs on them, but they're very low percentages, and they're also very low damage. So this is probably the best place that you could take this away and still end up with a pretty decent Mana Leech as well as IAS. The other consideration here that is important is that the Nosferatu's Coil, which gives you the 10% increased attack speed, is no longer needed if you switch to IAS gloves, which basically means that you don't necessarily need to have Nosferatu's Coils anymore. So you could use something like Trang's Belt for Cannot Be Frozen. You could use a dual leech belt, like maybe like Wilhelm's Pride. You could use a couple different options when it comes to the belt slot. There's a lot of different stuff going on, but there's no procking belts. Trust me, I've checked. There's basically no procking belts in the entire game. There's also another thing with the amulet, so if you wanted to swap out the amulet from High Lords, you could potentially try and find yourself a rare amulet. There are rare amulets that have Hydra procs on them. They're pretty hard to come by because you actually have to find, obviously, a good amulet that also happens to have the Hydra proc. But it would be another way to add another procking effect into the build that you didn't already have. Anyway, enough talking about all this. Let's talk about the charms real quick. Of course, we have a torch, we have an Annie. And then for the charms themselves, I actually utilize usually elemental charms. So I have fire elemental charms here. I've got lightning elemental charms here. I've got cold elemental charms here. I've got physical charms here. And I even have a 313 poison, which, believe it or not, I actually found this 314 poison during my Solo Self-Found P8 Paladin run. And having basically all elements in the build, this creates a character that basically does magic damage, fire damage, cold damage, ice damage, poison damage. I mean, literally every single element that you can imagine. So let's go ahead and get my pre-buff back up. And let's go murderize Shank real quick so I can show you how this character runs. Of course, my HP is at like 252 for some reason because I messed up the character file. Don't even pay attention to the HP on this character because it's obviously wrong. She's going to end up dying at some point because her HP is so low. I really don't know why her HP is so low. It doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe if I do a quick reset on her, let's just see what happens. Now she goes down to 1 for some reason. It's really freaking weird. I don't know why she goes all the way down to 1 HP. You know, I've been playing around with Hero Editor for a long time, but I've never seen that happen before, specifically. I mean, it's not really going to bother me all that much. I can just do my best not to die, right? Yeah. Yeah. Alright, there we go. $252 life. It doesn't even make any sense. Now, I have actually tested this character versus Uber Diablo, and surprisingly enough, I was actually able to kill Uber Diablo with relative ease. It took me a little while. I won't say that it was like the easiest thing in the entire world, of course, but I definitely did complete it. So this guy is, what is he? Stone skin, immune to physical, extra fast. I need to get the my proc back up. There we go. Of course, my no mana leech is coming into play now. Now, what you'll notice is that because the confusion proc from the delirium happens like all the time, you're relatively safe in most situations when it comes to your damage output. You can see that I only have 252 life, and quite honestly, I can pretty much just ignore most monsters. It has to come down to, number one, the knockback on the bow. So there is knockback on the bow, and it is very effective. And with the strafe and how well the strafe works, I am knocking back the targets with extreme efficiency. Number two is the twisters. So the Carrion Wind is proccing twisters that come out all the time. And if you know about twisters, twisters actually proc a micro stun, which causes the targets, I believe it's like 0.4 seconds is the stun rate on twisters. Which means that any monster that gets within range of me usually ends up getting micro-stunned by the massive number of twisters that are coming out of the Carrion Wind. On top of this, we also have the proc from Delirium, which is causing the monsters to get set into a confusion. Of course, the only monsters that don't get affected by the confusion are, of course, boss-type monsters, which is, par for the course. However, because of the way that the Bone Spears, the confusion, the knockback, the twisters, and everything is constantly proccing, it's very unlikely that a monster will even make it within range to hit me. In fact, a lot of the times I can literally just stand within melee range of a monster, and the monster can't touch me. And it really just has to do with all the little micro stuns coming from all of the effects. Now, when it comes to, earlier I was talking about how this build has changed with the next hit delay. So there actually used to be a next hit delay on Strafe, and if a monster had been hit by Strafe previously, they could not be hit by Strafe again, which had actually reduced the number of proccing effects that you could potentially get by a pretty dramatic amount. So instead of getting a rather large number of proccing effects, like 60, for instance, it was more like 20 out of 60 were actually proccing effects. Unless you were in like a really big group of monsters. As you can see, though, the Firestorm procs all the time, the Bone Storm procs all the time. My little Merc's in there shooting off frozen orbs and static fields, and it actually works surprisingly well as a build. It's just the silliest build, but it works. Let's go to cows real quick, and, I don't have a cube. Would be nice if I did have a cube, though, wouldn't it? We can always go down to Halls of the Dead real quick. Why not? We can have some fun in the dark. Now, occasionally you do have to swap back over to get your burst of speed proc, but honestly, as a Strafezon, it really doesn't take a whole lot of effort to get the burst of speed proc. You may have had issues on previous characters getting this proc to actually work, but let me tell you, when you're playing a maximum speed Bozon, Strafezon, that is set up with high AR specifically for this, you're not going to have any issue getting the burst of speed proc to happen. It doesn't, it just doesn't, it's not an issue. It's kind of funny, I still only have 252 HP, but I haven't died yet. I'm expecting it to happen at any point, but it just hasn't yet. Now, one thing that you do have to pay attention to when it comes to this particular character is that you'll notice that the monsters kind of like spread out all over the place, and when the monsters spread out all over, there we go, there's the death. When the monsters spread out all over the place, they will eventually cause you to basically spam all of your arrows all around you in a circle. And one of the things you really have to be aware of on the Strafezon, especially this particular Zon, is that you want to have all of your effects kind of like focused in one direction. The more you can focus them, the better the damage output will be in general. So essentially how this works is if you stand directly in front of a target, which I can't do because my HP is bugged, but you end up with a situation where all of your arrows are going to be traveling in the same direction and dishing out massive amounts of damage to everything within that area. So trying to see if I can think of a way to to display this. I think paint is probably my best option. So let's bring up some horrible paint here. All right, so if I am an Amazon, and let's just make a little circle for my Amazon. So this is my Amazon, and I am firing off arrows like this. Okay, so pew 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 pew. Right, so there's a bunch of monsters. They're all over the field of battle. I'm firing off tons of arrows all over the place. Right, I got tons of arrows firing out, and where's the point at which all of that damage is focusing? Right, it's right here. This is the point it's focusing right here. So in this zone, I call this the death zone, because if you stand face tank, if you literally face tank a monster, if you stand directly in front of a monster, the monster that you stand directly in front of right here is going to get hit by every single one of these arrows. And because they get hit by every single one of these arrows, they're going to take the bulk of the amount of damage that you're dealing. It doesn't matter where all the other monsters are. Because if you're face tanking that monster that you want to die, they are going to just absolutely get annihilated. And then the beauty of this is that as you stand directly in front of this monster, the subsequent hits cause bone spears to shoot out in all the directions of the arrows that hit this monster. So then you have additional bone spears coming out directly from this particular monster in those directions. And you know what I can do? Let's hop over to the online character. She's not completely set up. She doesn't have like the chains of honor and any of the other crazy things, but she does have a lot of the equipment, and she obviously has more than 252 HP. So at least I can show you how the proccing effects run on that particular character. And of course, it doesn't want to behave. Behave. Alright, so here's my Procazon online. I think I stole all her equipment. I did steal all her equipment. And this is the downside of having multiple characters and stealing all the equipment for multiple characters. So you're basically just sharing everything back and forth between all of your characters. Right now, obviously things are limited. I don't have access to a large number of pieces of equipment. So you can easily share this equipment between other characters. Right now I'm pulling some pieces from my barbarian, for instance, to make this character work. So let's just go ahead and steal his torch again. And we'll steal one of his crescent moons because that goes to the barbarian. And I believe we also steal some of his charms as well. I've been using some of his better lightning damage charms on her specifically because I like it. I also got a 313 poison damage charm, which I throw on there. And then, of course, this is the online character, so all this stuff has taken me quite some time to get my hands on. But I did eventually. Alright, so that should be more than enough. Bink, 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 bink. Alright, so just like my offline character, and of course I stole her wisp projector too, but just like the offline character, I do need to actually go get the burst of speed effect. So if you want to hit that max breakpoint, I'm currently utilizing, I don't have a High Lords yet, I'm currently utilizing a hustle armor, and I also have access to various other pieces of equipment which are helping me to hit the breakpoint, including burst of speed, which is really the biggest one, to be perfectly honest. And I just forget to give the ring, didn't I? Swapping equipment between characters is definitely one of the things that I think I've gotten to the point where I start to lose track of my equipment. I'll be like, oh man, I wish I knew where my perfect Ravenfrost was all across my like 17 characters. And then I like search through all 17 characters trying to find my perfect Ravenfrost, only to come up short because I can't figure out where the hell it is. All right, so let me show you how this this procking effect works when you stand directly in front of the monster. And let's see if we can get this corrected. Oh wow, what's up, Uber Diablo? Well, that's fortuitous. I guess I get to show you Uber Diablo. So Uber Diablo is a little bit of a long kill. I'm not even going to pretend that it's a short kill. It definitely does take a little bit of time for me. I need to get that defense negative on there. With negative resistances at the moment, as you can clearly see, this character is really not set up for Uber Diablo just yet. If I had proper resistances, it wouldn't be such an issue, but I don't. So, thankfully, though, because the bow does have Prevent Monster Heal on it, it's pretty much just a matter of slowly but surely utilizing the amount of damage that you have to work him down just eventually. It doesn't take, like, forever. But it's certainly not anywhere near as fast as like a smiter or something like that. And because you're a bow character and he loves to spam that stupid lightning on you, you constantly have to keep moving. Otherwise, he will obliterate you in this particular situation because, of course, you have no resistances, and obviously he has lots of resistance-based effects like lightning, fire, and all of the above. You do need to make sure that you keep your inner sight on him at all times because, of course, he has massive amounts of defense, and you definitely have to make sure that you're ripping that defense down. If you don't rip the defense down, you're going to have a really hard time hitting him. I think my current hit rate for Uber Diablo is, what, 62%? With the inner sight, which does not show up on the character panel, by the way, I'm much, much, much closer to a 100% chance of hitting him. And since I'm hitting, obviously, 10 times per strafe, which is very nice. In fact, let me switch over to my hustle real quick and re-up my buff. I may have to go back to town to get potions. I knew that there was a walk, but I thought that I had missed it completely. I didn't realize that the walk was still going on. It's pretty hilarious. It's like perfect timing for the video. There have been like an insanely large number of walks, though. Has there not been? I mean, there's got to be some duping going on. I think there's been over like 2,000 Sojas sold to vendors in the past couple days, which is kind of insane when you think about it. And use my Valkyrie a little bit more, even though she's just going to get one shot, but at least she stays alive for a little while. Distracts him for a couple seconds. Alright, let me go pick up some more potions here. I don't want to burn all my full juvies on him. You don't necessarily need the full juvies anyway. Now, you can go back to town without him regenerating, but you gotta be quick. Prevent Monster Heal doesn't always stick between town visits. Apparently there's something called a monster deactivation state. This is something that I've learned recently, a little tidbit of knowledge that I can impart on you while I'm having fun killing Uber Diablo. So if a monster enters a monster deactivation state, it causes all sorts of odd things to happen. And one of them is apparently that Prevent Monster Heal deactivates as well. So if you've applied Prevent Monster Heal to a monster, and the monster goes into a deactivation state, which basically means that you're not there to fight them, so why are they active, right? So whatever the cause, and from what I understand, going through town portals doesn't do it, but going through waypoints can, leaving the area, walking too far away. There's a lot of things that can trigger a deactivation state. Staying away for too long, even with the town portal, etc., etc., etc. There's like a million. But once the monster hits the deactivation state, they start to lose effects. One of them is Prevent Monster Heal. So Uber Diablo will come back. You'll come back and he'll start regenerating. You'll be like, why is he regenerating? I hit him with Prevent Monster Heal. Well, the answer to that question is because he entered a deactivation state. That's pretty much all there is to it. Alright. Almost got the big dog. Let's put some potions on the belt. And as you can see, actually capable of killing Uber Diablo, which is pretty cool. Let me go ahead and put mine up, and let's see what we got. And a 16-18-7. Is that better than the one that I was using? I was using a 16-19-6. So I traded 1 all resistance for 1 EXP. I guess the EXP is probably better while I'm leveling up at the very least. Anyway, I promised to show you guys what it was like to attack a monster like in a group with me being close to the monster, and Uber Diablo interrupted me very rudely. All right, let's use Shank as our source here, but let's go grab our buff first because we want to make sure that we have our burst of speed up. Which, like I said, doesn't really take very long for this character. As you can see, I've already got it. Alright, so we swap back to our regular weapon, and we're going to run in there, and we're actually going to specifically target Shank. So I'm going to let the monsters come out a little bit, and then we're actually going to force our way in, and I'm going to stand in front of Shank, and I'm going to, like, literally annihilate him. Notice that because Shank was inside that death zone that I was talking about earlier, Shank got absolutely obliterated from existence. There is just an absolutely amazing, like, death zone that exists at the very, like, you know, like melee range of this particular character. Another very interesting place that you can go farm on this character that actually works surprisingly well is the frickin' maggot lair. I went into the maggot lair just for fun a couple times. Yes, I know. I went to the maggot lair for fun. That's right. Well, the reason is because Strafe works so well when you can pierce multiple times. For the same reason that I just murdered Shank in like about a half a second, specifically because he was standing directly in front of me, this allowed me to dish out maximum damage output, right? Well, the thing is that when you're playing a character like this and you go into Maggot Lair has a lot of straight lines, and the monsters are all nice and lined up for you. They literally just sit there and let you shoot them in the face. Well, if you go into Maggot Lair and you shoot your arrows, your strafe, down a hallway full of monsters, what you're going to notice is all of the monsters are lined up in a nice, neat line, and you can hit them with everything. The bone spears, the strafe, all of the little effects, the fire, all of it translates down the corridors amazingly well, to the point that literally anytime you have monsters in a nice little neat line like this, you're just going to absolutely obliterate them from the world. Like, they don't even have a chance to survive when they're in a line, because what happens is you just hit like 60 times in a row straight down the line, and all of the monsters just get absolutely obliterated. The only times that you really have any kind of, like, slowdown is these areas right here that open up. Because when they open up, of course, now they're no longer sitting in a line, and you don't deal out as much damage as you were doing before. What is he, onto the ground, you little turd? Here we go. The maggots love to... Oh, he teleported away. Okay. Alright. As you can see, even immune to physical, like black locusts and things like that, are completely and utterly useless before the Procazon. The amount of elemental damage that you do on this character is absolutely silly. I'm never going to say that this is like the most ridiculously OP class in the world that, you know, you could possibly build, but it is definitely fun. Let's talk about some of the pros and some of the cons of this particular character real quick before we end this video. So let me head back to town real quick, and we're just going to talk about this for a second. So let me pull up a little notepad here. So pros. Number one, ridiculously overpowered crowd control. This character is able to crowd control with ridiculous efficiency. Between the stuns, between the knockback, between the cold chilling effects, between the frickin' confuse coming out all the time, just in general, the character just has amazing crowd control ability. Number two, very fast attacks, which means that you can obviously proc tons and tons of abilities. Hits everything. You basically have super duper ridiculous accuracy. Between the inner sight, the penetrate, and the strafe, all of them maxed out, and the negative defense that you can apply to monsters, including the ignores targets defense and all the other things, it basically turns you into a literal hit everything character, which is amazing. Number four is multi-elemental. If you set it up properly with all of the various proccing effects, and then you even include multiple elemental charms, like for instance I have lightning ones in here, but you can also include fire, you can include cold, you can include basically every element if you want to, and that's pretty much how your abilities work, right? I've got magic damage coming from the brand bow, I've got fire damage coming from the Hellmouth War Gauntlets, lightning damage from the Wisp Projector, physical damage from the Carrion Wind, and then of course the Confuse is actually causing the monsters to hit each other as well, which is more damage that comes in from a different source. We've got fire and physical coming from the Hellfire Torch. My Barbarian is providing, Frozen Orb, and then also he's supposed to have his Crescent Moon, which he doesn't. But that's another lightning effect and static field. All of this leads to a very multi-elemental character, which can put out some absolutely crazy damage in just about every single element. So you'll never come across any monster specifically that you're ever really going to have trouble with, because you have physical, fire, ice, and lightning and magic. So you literally have all the elements dishing out all the damage, and when you're finished with this particular character, setting them up the right way, you literally have nothing that you can't kill. If they're immune to multiple elements, it doesn't matter, because you still have the physical damage from the bow. You have amp coming from brand, by the way, so if at any time you actually need to use the amp, you can always take off the delirium for the time being. Just throw it in your stack or your cube or something like that, so that you're not proccing the confuse effect, because you have a 35% chance to cast amplify damage on striking, which basically means that if you go out, I don't know, let's say into the Canyon of the Magi, and you get hit, let's just go ahead and get hit real quick, almost instantaneous amplify damage, very high level amplify damage too, that lasts for a particularly long period of time. Level 14 amplify damage has a huge radius, it lasts for a very good duration, and with a 35% chance, all you got to do is just walk in there and get bonked once. So super duper easy to cast amplify damage on a target as well. We can include that in here. Easy amp proc, right? Another big pro with this particular character is that because you hit with the prevent monster heal on the bow also has deadly strike, and if you utilize, say, a High Lords over here, you don't need pretty much any deadly strike either, because the 42% crit that you have combined with the 50% crit that you would have with the between the High Lords and the bow, is more than enough to basically guarantee the double damage on your strafe. So you don't have to put any points in a critical strike. So you're set up with basically double. We can actually put this in here. So guaranteed, essentially, pretty much, pretty much, double damage from crit slash deadly strike. So as you can see, it's a really fun little character. Defensively, absolutely insane. Does tons and tons of damage in multiple different effects. Has tons of crowd control. In fact, the entire thing is just absolutely insane in terms of the crowd control too. Let's go end this with the cows real quick. I know this has already been like 45 minutes, but I think I did promise you guys cows, so let's go do some cows real quick before we end this. I think we got the portal right here. Nice. Where you at, Rockanishu? We can't leave without killing you. It's important. Or maybe you're already dead. I think he's already dead. Whee! And what's up, Grizzly Bees? Let's get a little bit of negative defense on him. Look at that steady flow. Look at the steady flow of bone spears. Now, I will warn you in advance, the cow level is like pure chaos. This character is nothing but chaos, I swear. Like, she is the embodiment of chaos itself. I don't even... everything just starts fighting each other. It turns into, like, World War C. The cow war to end all wars. As soon as I go in there, I'm just basically going to start spamming my Confuse. And as soon as I start spamming Confuse, everything is just going to fight each other. The whole world basically just starts fighting each other. It's freaking glorious. Oh look, there's some champions on. Let me get my Dujanks up. What's up, champion Hell Bovine? You can't even hit me, can you? There's another champion in here. There's an elite. Where are you at? Find you. Here. It's in there somewhere. My poor mercenary can't quite hang with the monsters without his other weapon. Wrath boy. Oh, the Cow King's in there too. No wonder he got his butt kicked. What's up, Cow King? It's such an absolutely silly build. Like I said before, I will never say that this is like the most optimal build in the world, but I'll be danged if it isn't pretty. I mean, come on. I got fire shooting out everywhere, twister shooting out everywhere, bone spears shooting out everywhere, freaking just like lightning coming out all over the place. I mean, it could get even worse than this, too. If you add in Dragon as the body piece, which is a little bit expensive, you can get a whole bunch of Hydras all over the place, too. Unfortunately, they changed the way that Hydras work, by the way. So Hydras you used to be able to cast as many Hydras as you possibly could. There was no cap, but it was a casting delay, a really long casting delay. And they removed the casting delay, but then they put a cap on it of 6 or whatever, which did unfortunately make this character less likely to use the dragon armor. Specifically because the dragon armor only procs 6 hydras now. And every time you proc a new one, it just deletes the oldest one. Whereas before, you could have like freaking 30 or 40 hydras up on the screen at any given time, which was hilarious. And this is just fun. As you can see, the Confuse does its job very, very well with this particular build because the cows are just all fighting each other. I don't know exactly how much damage the cows do to each other with the Confuse up, or how much any of the monsters really do to each other. But you will definitely see with this build that you can almost just stand directly in the middle of the cows and be absolutely safe. Because you're confusing them, you hit them with the twisters, you hit them with all the knockback effects, the chilling effects, if you have chilling effects. And for the most part, you just absolutely just crowd control the ever-loving hell out of all of them. It's absolutely beautifully great. I find that the damage output is much better if you play the minigame. So you might have noticed that the entire time I haven't really been playing the minigame. And what is the minigame? Well, the minigame is basically making sure that you are properly lined up so that more of your arrows are going through the targets. If you properly play the minigame, you'll get a lot more damage output with these with this build. You just got to make sure that at any given time your character is always lined up for the maximum number of shots to hit the maximum number of cows at any given time. So if you're in this particular situation right here, you're going to line up right there because you're going to get the highest damage output through the highest number of cows because they're kind of lined up in that line. And then as the battleground changes, you may go this way because this is a better part shot to the minigame. And you notice that just playing the minigame, I was able to kill things a lot faster than you would otherwise normally. Strafe Zons or Pierce Zons are all about the minigame. The more piercings that you get, well, this isn't real life. No, don't get the more piercings you get. The more arrows that pierce, the more damage you do. I think I've gone over this character enough. I don't want this video to be an hour long. So, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we just spend a whole bunch of time talking about a crazy build like the Procazon. And I'm glad I finally got a chance to actually make her because she's super fun to play online, and I always giggle every single time everybody's like, "Oh my God, why are there so many bone spears?" Yes, I giggle. Anyways, always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.